Hi, I'm Tom Lauk, City of Marshfield's Communications Director, and thank you for joining me on Marshfield Media Access. Today my guest, Steve Barg. Welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here, Tom, on a day that it's going to get up near 80 again. It seems weird in the middle of September, but we'll be moving toward fall pretty quickly.
Alrighty. Well, this is a time for our council preview. We do this every 2 weeks and inform you, the citizens of our city, Marshfield, about what's going to be happening on our council meeting on September 24th. So this is a good chance to know what's happening. You can come and visit us 6 o'clock on Tuesday night. You have questions before, give one of us a call. You can give me a call. I'd gladly get it to the right person. We want to make sure that we're bringing this information to you before the meeting so you can be there or ask questions. Well, with that, if you guys have been following, we recently had a planning commission meeting, and Baltus Tire was discussed. And that's going to be on the agenda again under the consent agenda, but I'm sure it's going to be pulled out or talked about.
Yeah, it could be. Let me give you a little recap for our listeners. We talk a lot of times about the closed session, and hush hush, we can't say much about it, but sometimes coming out of closed session, there's actual action that takes place. Well, at the last council meeting on September 10th, Tom, the council came out of closed session and made a motion to purchase the property called Baltus Tire and Battery. It's at the northwest corner of Chestnut Avenue and 2nd Street West, and kitty corner, I think we usually say, from Wenzel Family Plaza, across the street from the post office. And you might be saying, well, why would the city of Marshfield want to buy Baltus Tire? What's strategic about that? A couple of things. First of all, we've talked before about the 2nd Street corridor. And I think many of our viewers know that we have from Chestnut to Maple on 2nd Street, a 2-block stretch of 2nd Street going through downtown, made it one way, put in decorative features like trees and those kind of things, try to make it a little bit more quaint, angle parking. And but the hope was that someday we would keep going to the west of Chestnut all the way out to Stephen J. Miller Park and kind of draw people in from the baseball field. Hey, come on downtown. It's really a nice place to be, to shop and eat and stuff. Well, that's one of the reasons we looked at the property at the northwest corner of Chestnut and 2nd, the Baltus site. The other is because, and I know you and I have talked about this before, the city has looked at what we need to do with the police station. The police station building, I think, is like 35 years old, and it's still doing a good service for the city. But the thought was, when we need to build a new police station someday, or when we need more space, would we build a new place off-site, buy a piece of land and build a new station? Or would we take the current site on the north end of downtown and try to renovate and expand it? So the idea that the council came up with is, let's go for the renovation, which means that someday that the council would vote, presumably, to support remodeling the existing police station and then expanding it to the south. Well, guess what? If we expand it to the south, we're going to eat up parking. So there's two thoughts about this property being strategic, Tom. One is the idea that it might help us someday if we really do the corridor plan to the west. On the other hand, it might help the police department long-term with more parking. And secondarily, they'd like to find a place, and wanted one for a long time, to store vehicles outside of snow and ice, away from people, so they don't have to worry about somebody breaking in and trying to take radio equipment or a gun or something. So it might be a temporary use where Rick Gramza and his folks could actually store vehicles and equipment. So for that reason, the council had talked about this. They made an offer, and ultimately, after some negotiations, for $250,000, we've got a tentative agreement, if you will, with John Baltus. Now, having said that, what did the Planning Commission talk about, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the Planning Commission talked about, under state law, when the city's going to buy a new property and make it part of city business, it has to go to the commission for review. And the reason is to look and see, does it conform with our comprehensive plan? What about our zoning districts? What about everything else? And before we can go ahead. And they saw it a little bit differently. And my understanding is, I wasn't at the meeting, but they did not feel that this was a good move from a planning standpoint. So those minutes from the commission meeting may be pulled off by the council to revisit that motion and try and get this approved. Or theoretically, the council could just let it go and just let the recommendation of the commission stand. My sense is that it may well be discussed, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, so would there still be a vote from the council, or is that need to take place anymore, or is it pretty much a done deal?
Well, what will happen is, if the council decides to vote for that consent agenda without pulling off the Plan Commission minutes of September 17th, they're basically telling the world, we're okay with what they wanted. We're okay with not buying that piece of property. What could happen, though, is one of the council members could say, I want to pull off item I1 or whatever it is, and then we'll discuss, either the whole minutes or more likely that particular motion. And they may want to say that they think it would be a good idea to buy Baltus. Certainly the council's been talking about it and respectfully disagree with the commission. But all that's yet to be determined. I have no idea what's going to happen on Tuesday night.
All right, well, you guys can tune in then, 6 p.m. Watch it live on our website. You can do that if you're not watching on cable. You can go on our city website, ci.marshfield.wi.us. You can also go to marshfieldmediaaccess.org website, and we will have the feed there as well, and plus our cable channel 991. So tune in if you can't make it, and you can always watch it later as well. Well, there's another piece on the consent agenda I want to talk about. We're getting further with our aquatic center project, and we're looking for a construction management company. Is that correct?
That's correct, Tom, and I think we might have touched on this the last time we met, but again, people say, why do you need a construction manager? Why would you pay more money that's not going into the pool itself? But kind of repeating what I've said in the past, you want somebody on site regularly doing your business. You want someone to say, is the right material being used? Is that really the right thickness of the concrete? Or are they doing things the way the specifications called for? What about when there needs to be changes in the field? Okay, is this warranted to swap this material for that material? What about keeping it under budget? So bigger projects, we'd like to use a construction manager, and that's their whole entire role, is to oversee and be our agent as far as the construction. So if you look at I got a memo in there from Justin Casperson. We went out for proposals. We got 7. You see the list right there. 7 companies said they wanted to do this for us, and the proposals are attached. These are good companies. These are reputable firms that do this kind of work. The one that we're recommending is on the very back of the back page. It's from Boson, and Boson is a local company. And you might say, well, is the city just giving preference because they're located here in Marshfield? Well, that's a good thing for us that they're located right here. But they do good work. They have good references. And their proposed fee is really the lowest. They're proposing to charge 2.75% of the project cost for their work. And that turns out is lower than any of the other 6 companies that propose to do this project for us. So we're recommending that we go ahead and be authorized to execute an agreement for construction management services with Boson. And I got to tell you, it's exciting. And you say, what's exciting about that? It's one more step toward building a new aquatic center.
Definitely, and we'll find out where they go. Yeah, it's really nice to see all the bids, their bids, right?
Yep.
That came in.
Yep.
That really gives an overview for everyone, staff, as well as the council to look at.
It does, and it's good to get 7 proposals. All you're seeing there are the price sheets, but they were all proposals of many pages. And it's good to see that many bidders. I mean, if you only had 2 or sometimes you only get 1, you think, oh my gosh, I wish we had a competitive proposal. Getting 7 qualified companies is a good thing.
Well, this is a big project, $6 million project. So
it is. It is.
Yep.
And one more thing to add, if I can, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
We're still not into the public phase per se of the campaign, but we've been talking to some major donors and potential major donors, and there's a lot of interest. There's people committing money, and I think in the next 30 to 45 days, you'll start seeing us get to the public phase, which will be good for our viewers who maybe want to give amounts that aren't, $200,000, but want to contribute and be part of creating a new aquatic center.
Yeah, most definitely. You will, as viewers, be seeing that down the road. All right, there's another piece on the consent agenda that deals with, well, I guess one of our employees are going to be retiring, but Administrative Associate number 3, and how does that's for our Public Works Department.
Yep.
A little bit different structure now since we moved over to the new City Hall from where we are now.
It is.
Really, I mean, these are very important positions. That's the face of our public.
They are, and I think we have a problem with our personnel policy that would allow a good employee to retire. Why do we do that?
I don't know.
Here's somebody who's been serving us for 38 years, and we're going to let them step aside. Mary Anderson has been a faithful employee in that department for 38 years, and now that she's leaving, and you're right, it's a new setup at City Hall. For those who haven't been at the new City Hall, when you walk in, it's kind of a half circle. And it's kind of one-stop shopping. So do I need a building permit? Do I need a dog license? You can go to the right station. But I want the public to know, Tom, that when people leave, we look at ways to do things better. So what's happening here is we said, okay, Mary's leaving. Can we look at her job description? Can we see things that maybe when somebody else is hired could be added to this position or ought to be taken off this person's job? I mean, is it a good, perfect 40-hour-a-week job, or there's other things that could be added or dropped? And what we came to the conclusion is we think that there's a few things that can be added from other departments that maybe will make this a job that works really well too. So you see some of them. This person will also be helping assessing to some degree. They'll be helping take a few things on for other departments as well. And we think it's going to be a really good position. It's been a good position all along, but I think we found out there might be some room to kind of make a few changes between different positions and make this work out really well for everyone. We will be posting this soon, presumably, and we'll be looking for somebody to start around the first of the year, actually, maybe earlier. Mary's last day, I think, is going to be the third week in November, so we want to get somebody up and running. I said that too long. We want to get somebody up and running while Mary is still employed with us, so they can learn the job and be able to ask questions.
All right. Well, we definitely want to thank Mary for her hard work, 30-some years. That's a lot of work, a lot of time. You don't see that too often in jobs anymore. No one lasts the 30 years within a job. So I commend her on helping our place, the city, as well as all of us with a place like home, really.
Yeah, I don't want to make Mary feel old, but I mean, you think back to when she started. I mean, it was around 1980. I mean, the world has changed so much. Technology and our services have changed. So, thank you, Mary, for all your great work.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. All right, if you're tuning in again, this is our council preview program. Steve Barg, City Administrator, Tom Lokes, Communications Director. We get a chance to review the council meeting before Tuesday. So hopefully this helps you better understand before the vote takes place, and it's a chance to even contact your alderperson. I think that's, if you have a question on something here, even call them in your district. I think that would be the way to go too, because they're the ones that are going to be making those decisions. We just provide them with these pieces, and then they are the eyes of our city, I should say. All right, let's move right into an ordinance reading, number 1419. We do go through those as a first reading. We will have a second reading, I believe, usually. Let's talk about this annexation, Steve.
Yeah, we have people sometimes who want to develop land that's not part of the city, and usually what they want is, they want sewer and water. People who live outside of the city don't have city sewer and water. They have generally private septic and wells. And so up on the area of Highway 97 leaving town, or we call it North Central Avenue, and Peach, there's a parcel on the west side of North Central that somebody would like to develop. It's about 10 acres of land, and it's actually Paul Lang. It's right now in the town of McMillan, and they'd like to be part of the city of Marshfield. That would allow them to get the sewer and water connections made and develop it for commercial purposes. Now, they're not indicating right now exactly what that's going to be. They want to have it zoned commercial or community mixed use, which would allow various commercial uses as well. And right now they're trying to get approval to do this. And of course, as an annexation, I don't know if we've talked much about annexations, it will have to go to the state. The town gets a chance to review and comment, but this is an area, Tom, where the town of McMillan has said that they wouldn't contest it because it's an area that was expected over time to become part of the city. I mean, again, they want the utilities to make that happen. So this would be bringing 10 more acres in for commercial development, which is good for the city of Marshfield and good for people in the Marshfield area. Even if you're a town of McMillan resident, you probably hate seeing the lost tax base, but you might like to see some new business developed that you might want to go to too. So I'm hopeful that this will do well. The Plan Commission looked at it the other night and was favorable toward it. I wasn't there, so I'm not sure if there were any questions, but usually annexations and development are a good thing unless we think that they're going to tax our services too hard.
Okay. Well, this definitely is a win if it goes through, I would think, because of possible new business expansion as well as tax help for the city to help improve other things like roads and structures to get out to that place. And we don't have a lot of places to build all the time.
We don't, and there are some vacant lots left. Sometimes they're not in the most desirable locations, but if a city's going to grow, it needs to expand, and that means going into the township. And the town of McMillan, I'm sure, isn't thrilled about this. But they have identified it in previous plans as an area where they aren't going to argue with it. They realize that this is where it's going to happen along 97. And it's good to see the tax base. We're talking budget this time of year. It's good to see the tax base go up because that helps keep the taxes down for the other citizens.
Right. But they would be able to, if it does happen, would be able to get on things like city sewer system and our proper drainage. Not to say that there isn't now. It's a bigger, size of our city of 18,000 plus, we have to have a sewer and water.
We do, and most commercial uses need that too. I mean, you drive out in the country, you'll see a little bar and grill, you'll see all these other things, and they don't have, they're on wells and they're on septic. But for the most part, if you're going to run much of a commercial establishment, you really need municipal sewer and water to count on.
All right. Let's talk about that shared ride. We had brought that up a few times. This has to do with just an approval to execute another year. Is that right?
Yeah, we've signed on to a 5-year agreement with Running, and they're out of Viroqua, and they are, they're doing a good job. And but every year we have to re-up our agreement with them. And what's going to happen here is really we're just going to say, look, we're telling the public that we're not hearing many complaints. People are getting picked up on time. We're generally pleased with the service. That doesn't mean there's never a complaint. While I'm sitting here, there might be somebody calling and saying, hey, I wanted to be picked up here at my medical appointment and it's been 20 minutes. It happens sometimes. Again, just to remind people, Tom, a shared ride system means that if you're driving from one place to another and you get a call, you have to stop and pick up that person. It's not your personal service. So sometimes people will get in the cab, hey, wait a minute, what's this person doing here? It's based on the idea that for efficiency, we're picking up people as we go. But Running does a really good job. All that will happen is they'll be getting an inflationary increase. So it's basically saying, okay, you've done well this year. We're going to have year 2 of the contract, and you're going to get an adjustment for CPI to account for some of your expenses. And I think it'll go through pretty well. When this doesn't do so well are on the years when there are more complaints. Council gets those kind of complaints. The mayor gets those kind of complaints if people don't think the taxi's doing good. But we're not really hearing much in the way of negativity at this point. Well,
that's good. Now, we do get state aid for having a shared ride service. Is that correct?
We do. We get, when I started in government quite a while ago, probably too long ago, it was basically the services were covered by about 65% by federal and state grants combined. Now we're down to where federal and state grants cover about maybe 57 or 58%. So we're depending more upon rider fares and possibly the cities themselves. Now the city's goal here in Marshfield is we think the tax is great, Tom, but our goal is to not have to pay a penny of tax money. But if it turns out, it gets to be the point where the combination of the grants and the riders' fares that are paid don't cover the service, then we've had to say, okay, we'll chip in a few city dollars. But it's a great program. I really hope that funding for taxis continues because the state's big push is to fix roads, highways, bridges, and that's all good. But I'm concerned that they're going to rob Peter to pay Paul and say, well, we'll increase transportation for your roads and bridges by taking it away from taxi services because it's all part of the same transportation pot. And this is so important to our seniors and our people with disabilities to get to medical appointments and groceries and all these kind of things. I'd really hate to see this not continue.
Right, because this is the only service here, unless like Uber and stuff like that.
Yes.
But that's a little bit different. But we don't have a bus transit system here in the area. So
no, we'd like to. And if you're watching and you don't know this, if you're a senior or a person with a disability, it's only $2.85. That's not bad for a cab ride, $2.85. And those costs are kept down by the grants that we get from the federal and state government. So hopefully this program will continue for a long time.
Is that just within the city limits, our transportation?
It is. There are some cities that have said that we'll go get you if you're like a mile or 2 miles out of town. Okay. The problem with that has come up here. I'm glad you raised that. Is because when we do that, when we get a couple miles out of town, then somebody in town, and it's supposed to be for our residents, says, well, yeah, of course you're late picking me up. You're out in the town of McMillan. Why am I waiting at the grocery store? It's because so-and-so is driving his taxi 3 miles out of town. So we've held to the idea that many cities do, that you have to be in town. Okay. But legally, it would be allowed legally for us to say, okay, we'll go out a mile. And maybe that'll happen someday. But again, during the peak times, Tom, there are people waiting for rides. And we want to make sure, there's a lot of demand. And we want to make sure there's enough cars and people, drivers to handle it.
And we don't have to handle the cars. That's through our contract, right? That's all done by the company out of Viroqua.
Right, Running. And I think I said this to you once before, but there were some people when Running took over who were concerned because Viroqua is quite a ways from here. Mm-hmm. But they have a local office, they have a local manager. It's not like you're sending a car from Viroqua to pick you up.
No.
And they run a very good shop.
Good, great. All right, well, we'll hear about that. Let's, before we talk about budget, which is not on here,
Right.
I want to mention you have a piece in here about closed session, if we could touch anything on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
sometimes you can.
there are 4 closed session items right now, and 3 of them I really can't say a whole lot about. But I just want to touch on one. We are bringing what I hope is close to an agreement with the fire union. And I just want people to know that the city has a police union and a fire union. And we usually have agreements with them 3 years or 2 years. And we negotiate pay and benefits for them. And that we have very good services. I mean, these are outstanding people. But again, I mean, there's a lot of issues involved with what they do. The fire folks not only do fire calls, but they also do ambulance runs. In fact, ambulance runs are really 90% of their business as far as the number of calls they get. So I just want people to know that we deal with them in good faith. I think we're getting close to having an agreement to sign on for 3 years. And that's important for us because, first of all, we want to show these folks how much we care about them. On the other hand, if we're doing like a 3-year agreement, we want to make sure that we're thinking ahead because budgets are getting tighter from year to year too. So, just want people to know that these folks are unionized, they do great work, and we're trying to reach amiable agreements. I think we've got one with police department that runs through 2020. So later next year, we'll be starting to talk with them all over again.
All right, so is this just the fire union, correct?
Correct.
And when you guys do this, is this agreement, is that a closed session? Is that when it's
It
done?
is. In fact, there's bargaining committees, Tom, that have been meeting fairly regularly to try and work out the details. Not just wages, but you get into things like, uniform allowance, how much vacation time do you get, and all those kind of things. And you try to put together an agreement that's fair for all parties. And again, I can't tell you where we're at right now.
Sure.
I just want you to know that this is something that goes on in municipal government, and that we are blessed to have good public safety.
Oh, yeah.
We want to make sure that we have contracts that are fair for both sides.
All right, and usually a 3-year agreement, so then you wouldn't have to look back at it until 3 years after the fact.
Yeah,
Depends.
right, roughly.
Okay. All right, well, we'll see what happens on that if you come out of closed session, and that'll be something that the public can know about. Well, you've been busy with budget season for 2020 coming up. Probably never stops, tell you the truth. I would think it's always consistent, but come fall, it's ramped up.
It does ramp up, and again, just roughly speaking, the total budget, all the stuff we do is about $45 million. The general fund budget is about $22 million, and that's a lot of money. And it covers, I think I maybe said this before, but police and fire combined for at least half of it. Public safety is such an important part of local government. But then Public Works follows behind that, and then all the other departments. Some of the things you have to struggle with, and I'm struggling with right now, just to kind of talk about it, is money from state. The state of Madison adopted a 2-year biennial budget. You hear about this a lot. Governor Evers and the Republican legislature reached an agreement earlier than we thought they would. But even with that, they say, here's a big pot of money. We're going to give an extra amount of money in this pot. How much is Marshfield going to get? Not sure yet. So a lot of these monies for shared revenue and for transportation aids and these things, we don't find out how much we're going to get until a ways into the fall. So you're at your desk and you're thinking, okay, how much revenue do we have? Well, last year we got this much from Madison. I'm hoping it might be more. Last year it was actually a little less. And so there's a lot of, the only reason I'm saying this is there's a lot of things that still aren't within your control as you try to pull this together. But nothing is changing. Our first budget meeting is expected to be October 14th. And again, public, please give us your input. I can guarantee you this is a tough budget, and I'm still trying to work with department heads, and we'll be making some cuts to make it all fit together. And we need to hear from our residents, and you do a good job of getting them out to weigh in, Tom. We need to hear what are the things you want us to spend money on, what do you think the things you want us to protect if there are cuts. I know people want to see roads done. I hear that loud and clear every time I'm out and about. But what are your thoughts as we go into what will be another challenging budget here in the next 30 to 45 days, the public portion that I'm working on, the private portion, if you will, sort of right now.
Yeah, well, that's coming up. October 14th isn't too long from now. It's already towards the end of September if you're watching here. So, yes, get your ideas in. All they have to do is call City Hall, stop by, or email us. There's plenty of ways to get involved and open to discussion. But again, like I said before, alderpersons, you can let them know, and they can bring that attention to us as well. I'm sure it'll come up during the budget discussion because they're on the 14th. That's part of a council meeting.
Yes, yes. And I'll tell you what, I mean, you were probably present at this meeting, Tom. We had the meeting a couple weeks ago with the organizations outside of city government. Civic Band, and it's the School Patrol, and these are all worthy organizations. This is the first time we've ever made them compete with streets and police and fire. So if you are interested in making sure any of those issues are addressed, you might want to weigh in and say, oh my gosh, I go to Civic Band every week out there at Columbia Park, because these are going to be very, very difficult choices for the council, and they're going to make the best decisions they can. They always do. We have a great council and mayor. But weigh in with your thoughts. Please be heard.
Right, because none of these decisions have been made at all.
No.
So it's on the table.
And it's funny because you hear what goes on in Madison and Washington, and you think, boy, I feel powerless. I could write a letter to my congressman, and that's good. But here, you can literally drive to City Hall, walk into the building, go to the podium, and say, I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's our public comment, and that's what it's for. You get time from the mayor to do that, and that's really at any of our meetings, right?
It
Public
is.
comment. So
It is. And then also, as you said before, too, you can comment through social media and all other avenues, email.
anyway, any way that we can get your information is helpful to make our place a better place to work,
Absolutely, Tom.
live.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're out of time here, Steve. Anything else that's going to happen that you wanted to talk about, or we will come back in 2 weeks?
I think that about covers it for the second meeting in September, and going into October, it will be largely how we spend your money.
All right. Again, thanks, Steve, for coming. I appreciate it, telling me all about what's happening here in the city. I enjoy this time.
Same here, Tom.
All right. And I want to thank you guys, our viewers, very important to what we do here at City Hall and through our communications department. Again, thanks for joining me on Marshfield Media Access. I'm Tom Lokes, Communications Director, and if you have anything, please reach out to me. I'm always available. Just stop by City Hall, 7:30 to 4:30. Usually there all the time. Feel free. Thanks again for watching.